My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I am here with an opportunity to speak to a man that I have a lot of respect for. A lot of y'all know who this brother is, and if you don't know who the brother is, you're going to find out today, and I guarantee you, you'll never forget him. His name is Michael V. Roberts. Michael is he's out of St. Louis, and he's known for a lot of things, among other things. He's run multi-billion-dollar companies. He's done a lot of things around the world. He's deeply connected to work in Ghana and other places, and he's also coming to the All Black National Convention. And so, without further ado, I'd like to ask my brother, Dr. Roberts, how you doing today?
Well, I'm great, and it's good to be on the Guru for African Americans show because you are the person that's giving advice and counsel and leadership, and it's really not just in the United States as well; it's world known. I remember when we were in Ghana together, and your show was being shown from Ghana, and it's all over the world. So Boyce, I really want to congratulate you and thank you for being who you are on behalf of all of us who watch you. Uh, we appreciate what you stand for. You are probably the most clarion voice for African Americans in today's timeline. So, once
Wow.
again, thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm very humbled by those words, and I appreciate that. And I'll also acknowledge everybody that's in here: Doug and Tony and Anthony and Terry Cobb, and those who came in early. Put a B1 in the chat if you're Black First, if you love our community and you want our community to do well. Also, Black First means that we believe in educating our kids. We believe in teaching wealth to our loved ones, and we want to break generational curses. We do not continue them. And I'm going to say this as I humbly accept the kind words from Dr. Roberts, is to say, I'm nothing without my people. I'm nothing without everybody in here supporting us. And so I want to thank everybody out there too. So his compliment to me is a compliment to you all, because I think we're making Black history here. So Dr. Roberts, let me ask you this question. Let's just, I guess, start from the beginning. I was intrigued with your story. I remember when my brother, who's my number one business partner, read about you and your brother. And I remember years ago seeing the article or something. I don't know if it was CNN or somewhere else, and saying that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, and I guess I want to start there. Like, how does that feel to have been able to do so much with someone who's right in your own family? Does that? I mean, I know it has its ups and downs, but what does that feel like for you in terms of making that sort of success different from, say, if you've gone off and done something on your own?
Well, let me begin by saying that, we have excellent parents, Victor and Dolores Roberts. We just lost my dad at 99 and a half just a few months ago, and a couple of years before that at 92, my mom, and they'd been married 75 years. So that would immediately sort of indicate that there was a certain stability in our household as a result of our parents looking out for us, making sure that we're doing the right thing, getting us properly educated. Steve and I, my brother and I, both went to law school. We both came out of law school, and within a year or two were elected to our Board of Aldermen or City Council in St. Louis. I served 8 years. Steve served 12. So our commitment to the community was through the political activities. And by the way, I mean, when I graduated from law school, I moved 2 blocks from the projects in St. Louis, the Blue Line projects, where I was, you know, learning an awful lot about the challenges our people face. As an alderman, you're almost like a junior mayor. So no matter whether it's a drug issue that's going into a community we have to somehow seed out, or even if it's, you know, problems that are domestic in nature, sometimes, you are asked to step in and give advice and counsel and give direction. Well, at the same time, I was looking at our neighborhoods, and we saw that so many of our wonderful homes were being left vacant. The very homes that parents had worked day and night, extra hours in order to pass on as their legacy for their children. But our children were so busy trying to run to the suburbs and get away from the neighborhood that the properties were going to seed. And so I looked at those, and I started to invest in my own neighborhoods. and realized that at some point in the future, property on the inner city will become extremely valuable. And it's they say there's gold in dim their streets, as we said. And sure enough, many years later, the regentrification of a community is clearly showing that white folks are coming back into black neighborhoods that were black at one point and taking those homes and developing them.
Hmm.
So to do my part, and my brother and I decided we would start there. We moved on to build, and we bought an old Sears building in North St. Louis. In the 80s, Sears was moving out of neighborhoods as they became more black,
Hmm.
and many cities have big boarded up monoliths to drug trafficking and crime. We didn't want that to happen. We were just born 2 blocks from this building. We acquired it. We developed it out. We held it for nearly 40 years and recently sold it to the St. Louis Regional Urban League, who've now taken it and advanced it into a tremendous facility. And we're talking 200,000 square foot building that's now offering even more services. Now, we had 50 or 60 tenants, but now with the Urban League, we have it as a adaptable reuse, both for purposes relating to retail. We had a dentist, we had an optometrist at one time, and a variety of different. It was really a mixed bag of businesses that we negotiated into the facility. And today it's great. Across the street, we acquired the balance of the land, and we built a 42,000 square foot strip shopping center. It was our first of a few, and then I found myself being elected as the first black on the International Council of Shopping Centers, which is all the shopping centers, the developers, the tenants in the world that relate to that type of business. It was a great experience and one that I was able to give back in a variety of ways. We then decided we would go down into the downtown area. We bought our first hotel uh, after having built a few TV stations. We ultimately owned 12 full power TV stations, largest black owned group of TV stations in history. Sold some of them, started buying hotels. We ended up with 12 hotels around the country, sold some of them. We built a wireless phone company. We're probably I'm sure we're the only blacks who've ever built and owned and operated a true telephone company. It was at the time when digital phones were coming into play. Uh, back before that, you probably remember was the coolest guy in the movie had a briefcase with a phone in it, and it was an analog phone, so it was that snap, crackle, drop type phone. And now moving into the digital, by being sort of a futurist, which I'm considered to be, I always jumped ahead of where we were and put our business into a location that was going to embrace by the future. And true enough, analog phones became the standard. Now everybody has one. In fact, I was joking on the interview the other day. I said, how many people uh, get paranoid if they're more than 4 feet away from their phone? It's like an appendage to your body, and yet it's a entrepreneurial venture. We took that company public, and then ultimately sold it to Sprint. Uh, Began some investments in the Bahamas. We're the largest African American developer in the New Providence or Nassau area, which is again, just one more pleasure. And now I'm looking at opportunities in Africa. Um, but saying all of that, setting an example for young and emerging entrepreneurs, as well as seniors who are now free of children with more money and better education they've ever had, that they need to go after their dreams, which they still have. And if you have a dream, the first thing you have to do is you have to wake up. And then you have to sit up and you have to stand up, and then you to prosecute your dreams, go after those dreams. And this is what I'm hoping that as people read my two business books, Action Has No Season and Action Has No Season 2.0, that they'll see that, a kid from, in this case, North St. Louis, we weren't rich, we weren't poor, we just never had any money, could, build a company that, as you said, CNN once declared it to have a valuation of close to $1 billion. And we built it from scratch.
Hmm. Interesting. So, and everybody who just came in, I'm speaking with Michael V. Roberts, who is an entrepreneur. He's the author of a couple of books, actually. Action Has No Season and Action Has No Season 2.0. So I encourage you guys to go look for those books. And also, as you come in, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. I'd be curious to ask you this, Dr. Roberts. So, as you know, public schools and universities don't teach people to become millionaires or billionaires. They just, that's not in the curriculum. Everybody can't do it. That seems to require a specialized education that goes beyond just what you learn in school. Now I know you went to school. You went to law school, and I'm sure you did very well. But would you say to, say, a 19-year-old who is trying to become just like you, who says, okay, in 20, 30 years down the line, whatever it is, I want to be able to say, I own hotels, I own cell phone companies, I've started, you bought a lot of property, you've done a lot of real estate work. What kind of education would they get to be able to do those things?
Well, the first thing I would say to them is, uh, although the brick and mortar business model continues to exist because people need places to eat, uh, to shop to some degree, even though Amazon is making that more and more difficult for stores to function. Uh, let's face it, there's an emerging world of technology. It's the new revolution, and in that, there are areas that I'm hoping we'll see more of our HBCUs tackle, and that is areas involving artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, the metaverse. Um, I think that cybersecurity is something that will touch, all businesses when it's all said and done. And there needs to be experts and business people who can come in and advise and counsel in these areas. We're going to see autonomous cars, meaning that they'll be driverless. Imagine one day you're going to have a child who's going to school. You're going to put that child in an autonomous vehicle, a driverless vehicle, who will take them to school, but only the teacher would have the code to open the door and let them out. Uh, the future is amazing. Over the next 10 years, and I ask this when I go out and speak to uh, presidents of our HBCUs, our Black colleges and universities. I have a group called the RIG, Roberts Innovation Group. We meet every Thursday morning, and each of the subject matters I just described is an expert. For example, there's a great expert in drone technology. And what we did last summer was go into Mississippi, where one of our members of the RIG group had an elementary school grant. And we actually went in and taught how to operate drones. Uh, we went in with money management. Yes, of course. Why can't a 7 or 8 or 10-year-old learn at that age money management? That's the starting point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we also had esports, which is one of the great emerging businesses that a 14-year-old can make $100,000, playing in just a few games. But are these areas being explored throughout the inner city areas? And I'm hoping that part of our mission of the RIG mission, is to get out and expose these types of emerging uh, businesses that will take place. And I will add that if, for example, your job is repetitive in nature, uh, you will not have that job within the next 7 to 10 years. What do I mean? Anything that's repetitive in nature, a robot can handle. It'll be cheaper and easier But somebody has to repair those robots. Somebody has to be able to operate them in many ways and build them, of course. So even though we may see, you know, 8 or 10 million jobs going south as a result of technology, I project we'll probably have close to 60 million new jobs that'll be created as a result of technology. Well, are we being educated? And it's again, I would ask the dean of a school or the president of a school, where do you think people will be spending money 10 years from now? How will they be spending it? And what currency will they be using? Will they be using cryptocurrency as a predominant global form of currency? And if that's the case, do we understand it? Are we investing in it? Well, what are the considerations? So we have a lot of emerging businesses, and this is a very dynamic time for folks to explore their own dreams and their ideas and their aspirations. Um, so this is what I'd like to see. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, I was going to say that what you said makes sense. I used a really important word a second ago. Or you used a lot of important words, but one that popped out is invest. What I see as far as a pattern in your life and in the lives of many people I know who were able to win this economic game is that ability to see the future and to invest in the future right now, right? To plant your seed right now so that when the harvest comes, you're ready to collect. And a lot of us do the opposite. A lot of us follow the trends. We follow the crowd. We wait until something becomes hot and trendy and interesting, and then we want to invest in it. Well, by that time, it's too late. Like the stock market, the best time to invest in the stock market is now, not when the market's going up. You invest while it's going down, and then you catch the wave going up. And I think a lot of people don't get that. And I'd be curious to know. You talked about, for example, the HBCUs
Mhm.
training young people to be able to take those positions as they become available, which is important. And that's a type of investment. But what about also just owning the companies that are going to be making these moves? I found that that you have a lot of really well trained people that went to universities and made straight A's that don't have the first clue what it means to really be a business owner and all those soft skills and hard skills that are necessary to operate at that level, to play above the rim, so to speak. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that you're spot on, but I also recognize that everybody's not an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just are not ready to handle the risks of an entrepreneur, uh, and yet everyone has a dream of an idea. So I like to tell people that really you need to fulfill your dreams. In fact, in my book, Action Has No Season, I coined the word the actionaire. And the actionaire is one who takes their dreams, their ideas, their vision, and their passion, and they pursue them with courage and confidence and bravado. And I just tell folks if you can eliminate the fear of failure, you'll probably find yourself in a very interesting and new space in life. And when I say that, let's break it down into two words. The first word is fear. Fear is just a mental construct. It's
Mm-hmm.
not of nature. You weren't born with it. It's something that you allowed to enter your psyche. And if you've allowed it to enter in, can't you potentially have it discarded at the same time? Second word, failure. I submit to you, there's no such thing as a failure. You might ask why. Well, every day when you wake up, you're given 86,400 seconds. That's 24 hours. This is kind of the existential approach. But every moment that exists, you either use it or you lose it. And if you are a person who recognizes the importance of trying and making a move, yes, perhaps a marriage doesn't work out, perhaps a business doesn't work out. Is it really a failure or did you learn from the experience? Was it nothing more than an experience that wasn't as you would have liked the outcome to be? Or was it therefore an experience that you learned and grew from? So I like to have people eliminate the whole word failure from their vocabulary. I want you to feel that by taking a risk and going out and giving it a go, uh, that you will learn from it and you will be a better person as a result of it. And so, therefore, don't lay back and wallow in some kind of "I wish I hadn't done it" attitude. More so, look at it more objectively and say, "Okay, I get it. I didn't do it right this way, or I could have done it slightly different. Let's analyze it. Let's move on." And
Mhm.
that's what I've done. Because frankly, there's many businesses that I've done hundreds, and I've employed close to 11,000 people. 99% were black, by the way. And there are many businesses that didn't have the outcome that I wanted. So it's not like everything you touch turns to gold. No, I mean some of it turns to a flat product that you don't even want to smell or touch. Uh, so it happens. That's the reality of life. That's the world that we live in. But if you're going to be in this America, if you lived in a socialist nation, you'd call yourself a socialist. If you lived in a communist nation, you'd call yourself a communist. But we live in a capitalist nation, and therefore we're capitalists. And a lot of times, I've run into brothers and sisters who don't like that word because they think it relates to slavery, and that's not the case. Slavery was slavery. That was a completely different time and space. Capitalism is pretty simple.
Mhm.
Once you have a widget that you're trying to sell, I have a widget I'm trying to sell, and you and I are going at it trying to sell it to the third party. Whoever wins, you win. That's capitalism. But mind you, capitalism in our community in our day and time there must be a word added to it, and that is social capitalism, so that you're able to actually create and have a social consciousness. Because frankly, people are out here trying to help people, but you know what? When you're broke, you can't do much. You're
Mhm.
better off, making yourself a strong capitalist stand and making money in business, and then having that with a degree of understanding that you need to give back to the community and provide advice, counsel, and resources and treasure that goes back into helping others and pull them along with you.
Hmm. Well, I certainly hear that, and I agree with you. And by the way, everybody, I want you to know I'm speaking with Michael V. Roberts. Michael V. Roberts is an extraordinary businessman. He's the author of two important books everyone should read: "Action Has No Season" and "Action Has No Season 2.0." And if you, as you come in, if you could, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, Michael's going to join us at this year's All Black National Convention, which is going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. October 28th through the 30th. And so, if you are into all the things that we talk about on this platform, the convention is a space for you. We're going to cover every single thing from specialized groups on crypto to relationships to stock market investing to politics. Every single thing, and it's a great place to network and have a lot of fun. You can bring your children. We have a whole track to educate kids. So if you're interested, just go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. All right, so let me jump into what you're saying there. It seems to me, Dr. Roberts, that one thing that's important for our people to get is that the revolution needs to be financed. That you can't sort of say fight the power, on one hand, and then not have an economic plan, with the other. If you have no
Right.
economic plan, it seems that you're submitting yourself to the to the will of the people that actually control the resources. So that ability to access those resources and use them toward a productive purpose is an important part of just sort of not just being black in America, but for any human being, particularly in a capitalist society. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I'm saying that exactly. And sometimes I use an old um, kind of fairy tale story. I don't know if you remember the story of Rip Van Winkle. Rip Van Winkle was a guy who drank some rum and ended up in the Catskills, and he fell asleep for 20 years. When he finished, he came back down into the village and he saw the tavern and it said George's Tavern. So he walks into the tavern and he lifts his glass and says, "Long live King George." Well, he was immediately arrested for treason because the George that the tavern was referring to was George Washington. He
Oh,
had slept through a revolution.
wow.
And so I want us not to be Rip Van Winkles. I don't want us to sleep through this technology revolution that's taking place. There's It's pregnant with business opportunities, and
Mm.
almost anything that is traditional. I mean, look, you know, we're seeing it all over the place. Automobiles are going to go straight to electric automobiles at some point. In California, I think it's within the next 5 or 10 years that only electric cars can be sold. So there's all types of questions that surrounds that in terms of business opportunities. Now,
Hmm.
folks are busy creating a lot of changes. Uh, let's talk about healthcare, for example. When somebody dies, usually you pass because one of your organs uh, breaks down and fails to function. Well, with 3D printing and an understanding of your DNA, uh, your cellular makeup, a 3D printer can reproduce that organ. And in the future, it'll be a take this one out, plug this one in. And people will live probably well into their 150s, 140s. That's my futurist opinion. Now, that means that there's still going to be a need for housing, food, uh, a lot of the basics that folks are going to have entertainment, recreation. Those are still businesses that are going to exist. But at the same time, I see this emerging concept that I call the Robo sapien. You've got the Homo sapien. This is going to be a Robo sapien, and that's similar to uh, the concept that in your they're going to be types of chips that's going to have the type of data that's going to provide you with infinite knowledge, and that chip might be the size of a grain of salt. I'm sorry, a grain of rice, and it can be placed in your brain, and then you'll have this data that's going to be similar to the data that you have in your cell phone, and everybody has one. You know how it's almost infinite data. Well, imagine being able to have that in your own brain. Now, high, back in the day, those were called um, cyborgs, and maybe they still will be. But the question is, will we become a different kind of species, a robo sapien? Uh, and when that happens, what's going to be the case when you have this interesting uh, capability in your brain, and suddenly a brain hacker comes along and controls you in some kind of strange and weird way. Well, I hope what I'm doing now is I'm disrupting everyone's mind and life because without a form of disruption, we continue to do the same things over and over. And that's not going to be how we will be able to survive and become good capitalists and entrepreneurs in the future. We have to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then we have to figure out where will we fit in. Now, I had a great example. I was speaking to a group the other day, and I was talking about how I can hand my 2 or 3 year old grandson my phone, and he can show me how to operate it within moments. Young people are so capable. So one young man stood up and said, "Yeah, well, my niece, I was trying to get um, Netflix on, and I just couldn't figure it out. So his 5 year old niece grabbed the phone, pushed a button, and said, 'Turn on Netflix,' and it came on." And I think everybody who's watching knows that these young kids live in front of their iPads and their phones, and they have sporting games. Esports is going to be so popular one day I predict that esports will be an Olympic sport. It'll also be involved in gamification, and you'll probably see it at casinos. Caesars will have its team, and others will bring in their teams. People like, I understand, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and some of the high-end rappers all have esports teams. When I see parents trying to restrict the creativity of a baby, it bothers me because a baby explores and touches, and you want to keep them safe, but at the same time you don't want to block them trying to learn and be creative in their own ways, because that becomes a tool that will move them into adulthood and put them in a very interesting position to be successful in this world of technology that's emerging.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'll tell you, it's interesting talking to you because I think it always makes me think about whether or not, or various ways that we as a community can really get ahead of the curve, in terms of building a better black man, building a better black woman.
Hmm.
Um, I've never, I'll admit, I've never been really excited about the idea of trying to achieve equality with anybody. I
Right.
want to win. You know, I want to
Exactly.
see us way ahead. You know, I don't think the Chinese government is trying to be equal to the Americans. They're trying to compete.
That's
And
right.
so, so when I look at a guy like yourself, and I met your son. He's such an intelligent young man, and I have so much respect for your family. And
Thank
what
you.
it says to me is that the blueprint is out there. We've got the blueprints. We've got these blueprints everywhere. And one of the reasons why I'm really happy that you joined me today is because it seems to me that um, until we gain control of various systems, whether it's media or education, where we're deciding which blueprints are being presented to the masses, that we're going to always have this problem where where it's harder for me to get on to turn on TV and see Michael V. Roberts than it is for me to see maybe a rapper who is literally creating his own deathbed right in front of us.
Hmm.
There's a lot of there's this interest in just this crazy fork in the life of a black man, where on one hand you've got the men where you see them and you say, way to go, this is great, good job, brother, great family, great situation. And then you got the other stuff, and I'm not putting down anybody with this, but I really think I don't think it's an accident that we seem to see a lot of the other stuff. But
Right.
when I tell them about a Michael V. Roberts, they're like, "Oh, that doesn't exist. That's not what black men do." How does that feel for you? How was that for you and your brother? To be given such an extraordinary upbringing where you were raised to be intelligent and accountable and all these other things that you have. When you're kind of surrounded by people who maybe weren't raised the same way, what was that like for you?
Well, it's a good question. It puts you into a immediate teaching mindset, because you can either walk away and just ignore. Of course, and there are some people you're better off just doing that with, or you can reach out and help uh, change the mindset so that they understand, subjects like I wrote in my book, how to handle a predicament. Uh, it's you can't reach everybody, but I feel that everybody has a book inside of them, and they should write it, because they have stories that they should be able to share with their family and others. And I really believe we have to leave a legacy that does that. Now, I will tell you that regardless of all the money we've made and all the businesses we've built, uh, all four of my kids went to college and law school. Same with my brother. Um, his two sons went to law school. One is now a state senator in Missouri, uh, and his daughter got a master's degree. Uh, so I always tell people, don't judge us on the millions or hundreds of millions we may have made, but judge us on how we raised our babies.
Mm.
And are our kids committed to the community as our kids are, to be able to give back, so that we can be able to create generational wealth that's sustainable. Because too frequently, if you have generational wealth, after about the second or third generation, it dissipates. So it's also how do you raise your children to value the importance, yes, of course, of education, but they value the importance of a dollar. And how does that work? And how do you understand saving as well as investing? And is investing really a form of saving? Well, the answer is yes, it is. So you come with all of the. There's no do-it-yourself kit certainly, but I like the idea of being able to set myself out. My brother does the same thing. My kids are doing the same thing as examples.
Mm.
Because like I told you, for 10 years, I lived 2 blocks from the projects. So as I tell people all the time, boys, don't let the light skin fool you. I got plenty of street cred.
Well,
Yeah,
I got a light skinned wife who also goes through that, that perception of light skin privilege, and they don't know she grew up in Gary, Indiana. At the time she was there, it was the
right.
murder capital of the United States. And so it's kind of hilarious that somehow we think that light skin, means more than what it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So I got a light skinned father who has actually killed people. So it's kind of a funny thing.
There you go. Interesting.
Well, I tell you, I know you're a busy man, I'll ask you one more question, then let you go. But I'll say this, everybody, if you could say something in the chat, give a digital thank you to this brother for the great work that he's doing, the great example that he's setting, and the great lessons that we can learn. I want to just tell everybody, these are your teachers. You don't need to go to school to get your teachers. Your teachers are right here in the community. And these are the people that I look to. I look to yourself, other guys that I just respect so much. George C. Frazier, you and I both know George and love him to death, and or love him to life, and just quite a few others. Dr. Claude Anderson, Kenny Gamble, Minister Farrakhan. I've sat with him a few times, and it's one of those things where, for me, as a black man, I always felt like I needed to look around and find pieces of people that could help me build the kind of man that I wanted to be. I would turn on the TV and I didn't see, I'd see stuff and I'd say, no, I don't want to do that because I'll end up
Right.
dead. If I do that,
Right.
I'll end up in prison.
Right.
I
Well,
don't want these babies' mamas. I want to have a good life. I don't want to be stressed out. And so I hope everybody watching, will give me a verbal confirmation in the chat that you'll share this interview and introduce your children to people like Michael V. Roberts. And I hope you'll allow me to just say this, Dr. Roberts, because I really, I'm feeling passionate about this. This is Black history. This is your Black history. This is your Black history is not the stuff they teach you in school. Sure, we know about the historical figures and all that, but you need to pick your own heroes, and these are the people that you need to bring to your children. And in fact, I might get beat up for even saying this, but back in the day, before Dr. Ben Carson became the political figure that he is now, my mother knew him as this extraordinary surgeon who was making history with the work he was doing. And my mother used to tell me stories about Dr. Carson when I was a kid, because he was, he was born to a young single mother like me. Me and my mother were born in the projects. She was 16 years old when she got pregnant. She did marry my stepfather, about 4 years later, but still, and what it did was it made me say, okay, this is where I want to go. Education is the key. That's how, hard work, success, accountability, all these things. So again, I know the politics of Dr. Carson have kind of confused things, and we can debate that, but I really think as a community, we have to pick our heroes, latch on to them, and then take it upon ourselves to promote these individuals to our children. Like your public school will probably never teach you about Marcus Garvey. They'll never teach you about A.G. Gaston. They'll never teach you about Michael V. Roberts, but that's okay because that's our job. So Dr. Roberts, I'll give the floor to you for the last question. So what's next? Tell me about. Okay, so you come into the convention. Everybody watching, if you come to the All Black National Convention, you can meet Dr. Roberts right up close and personal. He's a cool guy. He'll be around. You can shake his hand. You can talk to him and everything else. Tell me about some of the work you're doing, particularly in Ghana. You and I went to
Yeah.
Ghana a couple years ago, right before the pandemic. It was a transformative experience. What's sort of next for you? Maybe you can start in Ghana if you want to.
Well, let me just say, I was with a number of kings last night, where I received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award, uh, and with me, who also received that the, from President Biden, uh, was George Frazier, who, of course, you just named, and my dear friends, the Minister Louis Farrakhan, who's stayed at my house in the Bahamas, who's uh, I've dined at his home. I was one of the largest organizers in St. Louis for the Million Man March. So, notwithstanding, being able to take three companies public, or being involved with taking three companies public, uh, ringing the bell at Wall Street that people see people ring every morning. I was there, my brother and I, when we were involved with one of the companies that we took public. Uh, so there's nothing wrong with being able to have this expansive life concept. I'm a I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, where I would receive the highest award that could be given by a fraternity to a brother, the Laurel Wreath. I'm a 33rd degree Mason. Uh, my point is, there's a variety of things that we can be diverse. You see, and so as you look at reaching across the pond to our motherland of Africa, uh, we got to recognize that it is the wealthiest continent on the face of the earth, and yet it's the poorest. Uh, and that's because, the materials, the valuables, the gold, the diamonds, the bauxite, the cocoa that's going all over the world is coming from Africa.
Hmm.
If you look at cocoa, for example, there's about $5 billion worth of cocoa that leaves um, Africa, mostly the Congo, and yet it's $100 billion business, but only five stays in Africa. So what does
Hmm.
that say? That tells you that maybe what we need to do is go over and look at processing companies, so that it's processed in the country that it's harvested from, which will create jobs and create commerce, and begin to place those of us in the diaspora to be able to go back home. As you know, they installed me as a king in Ghana, in the Adat region. You were part of the Kubo Kante family. Uh, and so, uh, but you don't have to call me Your Majesty. But
I don't mind.
but the thing is, over here we may not really grasp the significance of being a paramount chief or a king, and what that really means. And as you experienced, I mean, once you are exalted and you're part of the family, everywhere you go in Africa, it's all black folks. And and everybody is respectful of each other. Now, when you look at television and you see the things that you were describing a moment ago, it's because, and I own TV stations, but I wouldn't let this happen to mine. The the in the newsroom, the phrase is, if it bleeds, it leads.
Hmm.
If it bleeds, it leads. So if
Hmm.
somebody's bleeding and hurt, that's the lead story. It's, you know, and instead of it being some great and wonderful stories about family members and folks helping people on a regular basis, it's just they've indoctrinated people to the point where they're wondering, well, what happened?
Hmm.
What happened in last night? What happened over in the morning? I mean, etc.
Hmm.
I'm not here to try to, change something like that, because that's products that are sold on TV stations. They require certain numbers of eyeballs watching certain stations at certain times, certain shows. Uh, I remember when we did a pilot for my family that was going to be uh, a reality show, And what we were going to do is we were going to show the kids in school, the grandkids being born and coming up. We were going to show the whole lifestyle that created, who we are. And it was rejected because it didn't have enough drama in it. Well, they needed people, fighting and cursing and acting ignorant. And I'm serious. Think about it. What reality shows do you see that portrays African Americans in a positive light? But what they don't understand in the business world, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of nail biting. There's a lot of questions as to should I go this way or that way. We were going to create our own Shark Tank type approach. We're going to where we would evaluate black businesses, small businesses coming to see us that we could potentially fund and help grow and provide services. I mean, and there's drama in these things. Good, solid, nail-biting drama in the business world. But that's not what they, that wasn't what Hollywood wanted. They claim they did later on, but you still don't see it. The housewives and all these things. I mean, those are all drama-based, slutty activities, and that's how they want to continue to betray our people. So that's why we have to have shows like yours, which is a counterbalance to those kinds of that type of programming. And so I again applaud you for that. Now I did write another book. It just came out, and it's a novel, and it's called The President's Secret, and it relates directly to activities that took place in London, the United States, Afghanistan, and Africa, and the Bahamas. So it's called A President's Secret, The Royal Bloodline, and it's out in all the bookstores, but they'll have to order it for you. It's by Michael B. Roberts. So that's going to be a whole. People say, "Well, how did you do? How can you go write a novel after all the other business stuff?" I said it took about 15 years, but it's interesting and people are liking it. And I wrote it to be like a trilogy, and it could potentially be a movie. I'm told people are saying that now. So
wow,
let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here, and I'm gonna try to see if I can share my screen so everybody can kind of see it and know what to look for on Amazon. But yeah, so here's the book, A President's Secret: A Royal Bloodline. You can actually read a portion of it. It looks like on Amazon, and the price is only $4 on Kindle, $16.73 hardcover, $11.64 paperback. And it looks like there's only 4 left in stock, so you better order soon. And so yeah, I think that's pretty awesome, though. I think I envy you, novel writers. I don't have that kind of skill. It takes a lot of imagination and intelligence. So congratulations on that.
Well, yeah, thank you. But it takes patience. You got really does. And actually, one of the better places is to buy it is from authorhouse.com.
Authorhouse.com. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll put that URL on the screen.
Authorhouse.com, one word, and then go to store, and you can buy all my books there because I'm self-published.
Very nice. That's the best way to do it. Is that right? Authorhouse.com.
Yes, and It's better that way because I make more money that way. Wow. Amazon takes a bigger cut.
Yes, they do. Yeah. All my books are on Amazon, but I don't really send people to Amazon. I let them get their own traffic, and then if you buy directly, like even with Claude Anderson's book, same thing. Go straight to powernomics.com. So and I think that people listening, just for the record, self-publishing is kind of the way to go. Don't sit around waiting for somebody to give you a book deal. Just publish it yourself, and you can get good distribution and all that stuff. So I want to say thank you, Dr. Roberts, for joining us today. Man, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. And I wish you the very best on your trip this week. I know you're headed to Africa, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of that.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm here at the Congressional Black Caucus weekend in Washington. As I said, I received the award last night, and So I'll be partying the rest of the weekend until I get aboard a plane for Ghana.
All right. All right. Well, you have a good time. And by the way, everybody, Dr. Roberts is going to join us at the All Black National Convention, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina, October 28th through the 30th. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. I know a lot of you are coming. Don't forget that October 7th is the last day to get your discounted hotel room. After that, you got to pay full price, and the downtown Sheraton's a nice place. So the full rate is a lot higher than the discount rate. So you may want to go ahead and lock your tickets in and everything else. There's a URL on the screen. And not only will Dr. Roberts join us, but we got a lot of other great people there. Everybody from Rizza Islam to the chairman of the Air Jordan brand, Larry Miller, is going to join us and talk about how he made that company into what it is now. And just a bunch of other great people. And if you really want to hang out with a lot of other people who think the way we think, that's the place to be. So I look forward to seeing everybody in Charlotte. And I look forward to seeing you as well, brother. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it, and keep up the good work. We need you. We need you, and we need your voice.
Well, vice versa. So everybody, don't forget, go to authorhouse.com and take a look at Dr. Roberts' books, and let's support each other. And everybody give him a digital thank you, digital round of applause. Congratulations on your awards and everything else. And you guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.